Hi everyone, it's Den here, and we are recording another episode of Image Breakdown at the School of Light. Now, the Image Breakdown is a series of videos I'm doing with people who are from the light painting community, people that I trust, I care about, people that I think have skills that will help you, whether you are new to light painting or an experienced light painter. By watching these and us looking at images, you're going to take something away. And I've plucked people off the internet and from my life who I think will help us do that. And it's funny, tonight I'm doing the English madmen, one after the other. And with us here today is tonight or morning or wherever the hell you are is Mart Barras. G'day, mate.
Hey, how you doing? Good.
I'm good, man. So I always like to introduce these people, and then we're going to take a look at the image I'm putting up on the screen now, which is just an absolute mind blower. But before we get into that, I'll introduce you to Mart a bit. So Mart has been light painting for a long time. I've been doing a bit of searching, mate, on the Flickr. And I found a bit of light painting from back in 2012, which in real terms is, they were early days.
Yeah,
they were early days, and we connected pretty quickly from there online. But there's some things that I love and I've found and I've noticed that I'd forgotten in reality, because as light painting artists, we become recognized for different styles and methods. But back in the early days, when we were experimenting a lot, Mart was spinning some pretty crisp orbs, mate.
Yeah, occasionally, yeah, inspired by some Australian guy that I can't remember his name, but he was very prominent on Flickr at the time.
They were
not up to that level, Dennis.
No, they look. And then what happened is I like to make notes on how to describe people to you, because the idea of these is to keep them brief. But Mart is a guy who explores and experiments and pushes, but not in kind of a disjointed way. What I noticed when I look through because I've spent a bit of time, mate, over the last few days getting ready for this, and particularly with your work, when I look at it, is you'll go down an avenue, but you'll push and you'll push and you'll push and you'll practice and practice and practice until, we get to a point where I think, thinking about the image that we're going to look at today, which is, I'm making some assumptions here, is, a multiple, lens capping and techniques and stuff. But when you think of Mart Barras, and unfortunately I'm going to smash everyone with this today, is that when I think of your work, and I've been lucky enough to actually be inside of one in Germany, is your rotation work is simply mind-bending. And we will, at some stage later, you and I are going to sit down and we're going to break one of your rotation images down. But
okay, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, people will be going and having a look through your social media feeds, and they're going to see a lot of rotations. But today we are going to have a look at this amazing image here. And what I would love you to do, mate, is I have a question for you though. Have you ever given Phil Fisher a massage?
No, not yet. And I'll vehemently deny it.
I'll ask him the same question. No, anyway.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
I've
chucked a sausage at him when we were in.
Don't let
sausage. That's actually a physical sausage.
Don't let him too near the sausages. But another thing, just out of curiosity, you and I have actually met. It's funny, we've never met in the UK, but we've met a few times.
Met twice in Germany.
Yeah. We've been in Germany a couple of times together.
Yeah.
And the last time was last year at the very cool Light Up Berlin, and and I'll touch on this and I'll put the image on the screen before we get going. But I was lucky enough for you to watch you creating a rotation image that I was in. You did some stuff with me, which was very cool. But mate, what I would love you to do with this image is the first thing we're going to do is I'll get you just to sort of just chat to us a bit about the idea. There's a lot going on here, and I think and then we'll break it down into some steps. But I don't normally do this, but I'd love to just sort of describe how I feel about it first. And the thing, I've got it over on the screen over here, but you'll be able to see it you guys will be able to see it on the screen here. The thing that it does for me is it just draws me in. The more you look at it, the more I'm just feel like I'm falling into the image. And there's the techniques you have used to create that is good. Talk us through it. Like,
Sorry. So the idea sort of come from, I'm sort of like old enough to have experienced those old school rave flyers that, were kicking around at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, that sort of like dreamscape ones. And they're all very, psychedelic and trippy and ethereal and stuff like that. So, I mean, this was definitely, I went for a little series of doing some work with a mannequin head at the time. So this was just one of the shots that sort of came out of that batch of work, maybe for probably about a week, 2 weeks. So, they've all got similar elements to it. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. So some of them didn't get ever shown. But it is literally from that. It was just sort of something that I would be, I could see as a sort of image for a rave flyer.
Yeah. Well, it would do that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was quite pleased with it when it came up on the screen. So that's the buzz, isn't it? I think most light painters are tamed for. When you flick the back of the camera on and it's like, when you're like, I've managed to nail that. Yeah.
So let's break it down. The more I look at it, there's a lot of elements. I would be interested to hear. Just step us through it. We don't. Just step me through. Like, I can see there's clearly the great thing about so many of your photographs is there's so many elements to this.
Yeah, there's a few in this. So the sort of the outside bokeh edge of it, that is actually one of the light painting brushes, black fibers, hung on a light stand, and I've got the camera pointing at it, and it's a Helios 58mm, so the Helios 44. So now the front element of this lens is reversed. There's lots of videos online of how to do it. So you reverse the front end, and it gives you that kind of jellyfish kind of bokeh around. So it's basically camera's pointing at that on the rotation tool, and obviously to fill the outside of the frame, I've rotated it and lens capped it. I think it was about 10 times or 12 times. So it's like a little bunch of black fibers rotated, so they're all out of focus. Around that, then I've capped the lens, taken it off, and then put it on a Sigma 18 to 35 lens, pointing at the mannequin head. I've got then a stencil, and I know you've covered these in your one with Kim.
Sure.
So stencil, not that stencil because the original one is dead, but I use a system where I put it into a A4 photo frame, and it holds it in place every time, and I'll put a little mount for a light stand, so it sits like that.
Brilliant.
So that's a good technique, use a photo frame, just painted black or black tape or whatever gaffer tape you want to get ghetto. So it holds it in place in front of the head, and then I've put a laser on behind through so you see in the stencil. So the laser and vape. So you've got the laser coming out, and then capped it, taken the stencil away, and then I've also used a LED strip, a bit like a little mini pixel stick, and swiped down in front of the face.
And that's where the lines and the rain.
Yeah, so the camera can't see it because it's looking the opposite way, but you get the reflection onto the face, and it also gives those nice textures around the eyes. And because it's a black mannequin head, so it's just bringing out some elements from that really. So it's quite simple in sort of elements in there. Like you've got rotation, you've got laser and a vape, and a mannequin head and some LEDs. But with these kind of shots, it's the practice and the setup. The actual shot probably only takes a minute to perform, but it's all the run up and the practice to that gets you trying the levels and making sure it's not overblown. Lasers are a tricky one. This is indoors as well, so you're quite limited on, because you've got walls that reflect a lot of the time. You're quite limited on what sort of f-stop you can play at. I'm generally probably at the higher end at that point. F18, F22.
So you're using, so you're doing So you've lens swapped, right?
Yes, yeah, lens swap.
And the lenses that you're using are manual aperture, yeah?
Yes, not on the Sigma 18 to 35.
No, but
The Helios is, yeah, so that's
yeah.
manual. On the Sigma, and this is with my old Nikon, you could press the depth of field button. So you put the Sigma on first, get the aperture you want, press the depth of field button. This is a trick that Dan Whitaker taught me and Tim, and then take the lens off while it's still on the camera, and it locks the aperture in position on the lens. So then when you then come to put it on again afterwards, it's still at f7 point, 2 or 7.1, and basically.
Yeah. And if you put it on so it doesn't touch the connectors,
yeah, you can do that way. But when it does the connection, it doesn't, because it's already had a sort of a manual lens on first. It doesn't try and override it back to a different aperture.
So I love this question. This is one of my favorite questions with you, crazy mad multiple exposure lens swapping aperture mad. Like how many attempts till you saw something on the back of the screen that you were like, yep, that's the.
Well, with this one, because I've done a couple of others similar to it, I sort of quite quickly I started seeing shots I like. This was probably like, I mean, me and Dan have a running joke that we start light painting, it'll be the first one that's the best one, but you'll try and better it 3 or 4 times. So you might go through 4 iterations and then go, actually, the first one's the best. And you just wasted 20 minutes of your life trying to capture something you already captured quite well in the first one. I think this was like quite early, if I remember rightly. But like I said, the other one that you liked was the PCB head, where I did lots of different variations over a course of a couple of hours, and some of them.
And we'll show that one actually, because it's a you can see it's still the mannequin. You've used the laser, you've used the fiber optic, but you've plunked something else in there. And
I used a PCB, so I obviously another lens swap at that point rather than from the bokeh. It was straight to the PCB first, and then it was just trying different ideas and different things, see what works. I mean, I think Gunnar described it best with these kind of shots. You're engineering a shot. You're not just taking a photograph.
That's
So it's you try an element, doesn't work, no, take that out, try something else. That's how my process works. I'm sure other people just know straight away what they're going to do. I have an image and I'm trying to capture that. So I'll try different elements after I've got the main one. So
it's like genuinely building an image, isn't it? You're building it, and you're building it. Yeah, and you. So you get the fiber optic part, and you're used to that. So you do the and then you're adding another element, and you're doing it, and adding another element.
Yeah.
I find I've never done a lens swap. I think anyone who's not in the light painting community, the idea of lens swapping and multiple lens capping, what the far out are you doing? That's crazy. But
lens swaps, I mean, I think they're the one of the greatest techniques you can have for photography, because you can literally go from, if you've got an 8mm fisheye and a 500mm lens, you can go in the same frame from an 8mm to a 500mm, and that's the kind of lens you can't buy, so you're actually able to achieve something that isn't physically out there in the market for you to be able to do that. So that's a proper technique. There's something that's really useful, but it's a very weird one to do, and it does take a bit of practice. Like all light painting processes, it's something you have to do a lot of in the dark, and you're doing it with your eyes closed almost, but it's a feel thing. You get a feel for where the aperture of the camera is to put the lens on to make sure you're not binding up contacts, and it's just being gentle and just trying it. But it comes naturally after a while. It was unnatural for me the first few months of doing it. It feels weird, and then
if I so thinking about, I want to ask you a question about not so much rotation, but thinking about lens swapping. If there's someone wanting to do, the first thing I want to do, so I don't forget, can you point a laser at your directly at your camera sensor?
No. So basically, when for setting up something like this, you put the laser on. You've got something blocking the laser from hitting directly at the camera sensor, which is the head, or say if there's a backlit silhouette person is in front. But what I normally do is leave the lens cap on at that point, and I'll put a bit of smoke out, see where the laser light is going, and making sure there's no laser dots onto my lens cap. And then at that point, I'll take the cap off because I know it's safe to do that. But you have to bear that in mind, because the laser will kill a camera quite quickly.
That's good. So there's a safety thing. Now, a piece of if someone wants to start playing with lens swapping, what's a piece of advice? Give us like what's the one thing?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to have two lenses to be able to lens swap. You can go from one lens off to a refractography, is it? You know, or like and a piece of glass in front of the sensor and do that. So I mean, you don't need two. You can just have one and take it off. You know, but generally, obviously, two lenses is quite a good start. You know, if you're going to swap lenses. I know that certain cameras like the Olympus, they have a built-in sensor. So when you take the lens off, it will then turn off the shot, stop the exposure. But you can get around that, because if you're using manual lenses and you've got a manual adapter, one without any contacts, once that's on the lens, you just unscrew the lens and the camera doesn't know. So that's a good tip for Olympus users. I think Canon I've used, and there's no problem with Canon. Nikon, you can take them off with Nikon quite easily, and the camera just doesn't mind. Obviously, you're going to get dust inside your sensor. You know, if you're lens swapping, you're going to be cleaning your sensor more often. I wouldn't lens swap on a beach necessarily, because you don't want sand or somewhere with a lot of aggressive
if you're into photography in a metal foundry, probably not lens swapping.
But I mean, like indoors is a good place to try it. But you will get more dust inside your camera by taking your lens off more frequently. But just something to bear in mind now.
I have another question for you, mate. When you're putting these ideas together, do you ever, so you obviously in your mind you're conceptualizing the idea, do you ever physically write it down? Do you ever make sketches?
I used to at the beginning. I used to more. I mean, I still do occasionally if I want to, try to work something out or process out in my head. I'll write stuff down or draw a little sketch badly. It just depends really. I mean, this one I didn't. It was just something in my head and I could see it enough to be able to know what I was trying to achieve. But I have drawn out little figures and lasers behind them. And I think that's just part of it. It's part of the process of being a light painter.
I think it's funny. What I was thinking as I was asking you that question is, I do that with my light painting. I put a circle. There's a circle. Good. Yeah, I'm going to put a circle there or there. Mate. We like to keep these things brief, but what I do know is that we're going to do a few more. You have I would love to sit down with one of your rotation images and chat about that. I think for anyone watching, for people like yourself and all of the people in these first series of the image breakdowns, is just go and spend some time scrolling through Mart's social media, but back in the early stuff of Flickr. And I think what it's wonderful for people to see is, because often I hear from people, or they contact me and they say, look, I'm really struggling with what to do and all this. And I think what happens is, if you go back, I think it's like all art. I love looking at art books, and I think it's exactly the same with our art form. Is go back and have a look at someone like Mart's Flickr page and start at the beginning, and you'll have a giggle, because it's just like all of us. We all started by doing really crap things, and you see the progression through the years. And I think what's inspiring about that is it reminds us all that even today, I know, mate, if I look at through the last 2 years of your light painting, it's changed and evolved, and even myself, I'm always trying new things, and everyone. I don't think there's any light painters of any metal that are not constantly evolving.
I remember also you got to remember that if you're starting out, I might only post one very good image that I'm proud of, but I've also taken 25 really rubbish ones, trust me, or ones that I'm not happy with, and some of them might be okay, but there'll always be something niggling in there. We're all learning and evolving. It's don't be afraid to try stuff. The only way you really learn is by experimentation with this as a hobby, or a profession. You know, it's you try it, does it work? Yes, no, right,
Yeah,
I'll keep that as
yeah.
a technique. You know, that's the only way people learn from it, really. And you have to make those mistakes to sort of find it. You can avoid certain pitfalls that are, you know, that are great to know. You know.
I was chatting to, I was chatting to, there's an image breakdown with Troy Paver, who is, who I've always adored as a light painter.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He was hesitant. He was hesitant to come on because he was like, oh, but I've watched all yours and they're all like, you can't see my light source. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah, that's the goal, isn't it?
it's the idea. He is, but he was telling me he used to light paint with film in the early 90s, and my head exploded. And so, you know, we live in this beautiful time where you can just go and lock yourself in a room and smash out 200 images. Anyway, you and I could sit and talk about this stuff all day, Mart. Look, I reiterate, go and hang out and have a look at Mart's stuff. If you want to have a crack at doing some rotations or some lens capping or stuff, you cannot find better inspiration than you, mate. And I want to, one of the things, I would love to take this opportunity just to thank you for being such a good friend over the years. We have, I think you and I and Phil and Tim Gamble, who I just spoke to, are really good examples of how people can connect from literally opposite sides of the planet. And through,
it's amazing.
Through an art form, through a particular art form. We live in wonderful times.
Yeah, we do. We're lucky.
Weird times.
Yeah, weird times.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, mate.
Look, it's a pleasure. You're a good chat. Go hug those kids.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us again at the School of Light for another image breakdown. And I'll see you for another. We've got so many lined up. It's crazy. Thank you, Mart.
Cheers.
Peace,
Bye.
brother. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the School of Light. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll be adding videos all the time. Head over to the Light Painting Tool Shop at the website. There's a huge array of tools I've made there for you to take on your light painting journey. Peace.